So unless you've been off the grid for the past couple of years, you've probably heard a thing or two about AI, generative AI, LLMs, and all of that. And in a way, it's really nothing new. We've been talking about this, as long as Google Trends has been around. But of course, something happened at the end of 2022, and that is the release of OpenAI's ChatGPT. And of course, it's been awesome, and everyone's been talking about it. And I asked my friend Rick at Microsoft about AI as an assistant for making presentations. And I really look at it as sort of an assistant, or maybe a room full of assistants who are really good at summarizing things for me.
One of the things AI can do, and it has nothing about being in PowerPoint, and I'm going to stay out of PowerPoint for a while, is it can summarize.
And summarizing is very powerful. So for my research and for my job, making, of course, content for college classrooms, and then also the keynote presentations and seminars that I do, but I basically, if I'm online, it's Perplexity for search, and then elicit.com, which is great for going to find more of the academic papers to go in a little bit deeper. And then, of course, more recently, in the last couple of days, DeepSeek, and it has the reasoning with R1, which so far, at least, I find in many cases, it's even better than using the Pro search. But anyway, you can get that with Perplexity if you have the Pro version of that. So that is awesome. It is awesome. But there is a little bit of an issue that I have, and that is with all these companies that are putting out AI for presentations. Make your presentations with this AI app. And I'm not totally against this, of course, but there's a lot of hype going around with this, and you get all these kind of phrases like presentations in minutes, presentations in seconds. So these are just some of the marketing claims, right? Create presentations 10 times faster, right? Things like instantly, presentations in seconds, right? Create presentations in seconds from a single prompt in minutes, beautiful output with no design work. Just add content, and your slides will adapt like magic.
There's no such thing as magic.
Yeah, I really like this claim here. So just add content and magically it will appear. But the content is really the hard thing. That is the thing. Those are our ideas and our research and the time and effort that we put in thinking about things. So it's not a small thing. It's not like making Kraft macaroni and cheese or something. And it reminded me of this old, I think you have to be over 40 or 50 to remember these Steve Martin albums in the 70s. But there was one where he said, you can be a millionaire and never pay taxes. Right? You can be a millionaire and never pay taxes. Well, what's the first step? Well, first get $1 million. Yeah, okay. So that led to some laughter and then the punchline. But the point is, yeah, it's really hard to get $1 million. And it's hard to come up with the content if it's really your content and it's the fruits of your labor and your thinking about things and putting your ideas out there in the world. So the content really is the point. So what I'm kind of saying in this video, my thesis is we should spend more time in the preparation stage really thinking, and that thinking is going to lead to more learning as well. So the other claim that a lot of the marketers are making is that this will help create presentations 10 times faster. And in some cases, maybe you can make really good presentations much faster than you did before, although I don't think that's the point. So, as long as since I was a kid, speed has been the obsession for our societies here in Japan or living back in the United States, right? It's all about speed, and instant. But if you're going in the wrong direction, then it really doesn't matter how fast you're going. So I think speed is important sometimes, but there are more important things. But of course, I can see a use case for, like McKinsey style presentations that companies do, that enterprises are engaged in. That's a little bit different than being on a stage or presenting at a conference or doing a seminar or something like that. But I can see that for people who are often changing their slides, constantly being updated because of different financial information or whatever, there definitely is a use case for that. But what I'm interested in is the learning aspect. I just hurt myself. So, of course, we can use AI to create presentations in seconds. Sometimes that might be appropriate, just like sometimes fast food is fine. It's appropriate. Maybe we just want to have some fun, or maybe we're at Disneyland or whatever, but we don't want to eat fast food all the time, and we certainly don't want to use these kinds of applications that make our presentations in seconds, at least not in the education space. The marketing around a lot of these apps are basically saying, okay, you're a student, for example, you have a problem that you want to present about, or maybe your teacher gave you an assignment. So just, open up the computer and let AI go to work, instantly create your presentation. There it is, instant presentation. So here's my presentation for my science class on going to Mars, like magic, instantly created. Here's another one for my marketing class, and here's one I'm preparing for a TED Talk. Okay, so I'm not sure how great it's going to be if it's done in seconds. Okay, so again, presentation is a powerful tool, whether we're talking about elementary school students or junior high or high school or college. Presentation is a tool for learning, not just for sharing information. So I'm going to quote myself, which is kind of weird. Presentation is not just a medium for communication. When prepared well, presentation is a tool for thinking and an activity for learning. Now, even if AI could do it instantly in seconds, I'm not sure why you would want it to do that, because that robs us of what we want to do. Things should be a little bit difficult for us, not unnecessarily difficult, but when we work for it, when we have time to reflect and to think about it, it's going to make learning better for us, and it's going to make a better presentation for the audience. So this is the situation. So if we have a presentation or a problem, we have students work on individually, they're going to go up and do their 10-minute presentation, for example. And this idea is that, now you can just have it prepared, basically automatically with a few prompts. So in Made to Stick, which is a book I often recommend, one of their tenets is they say, through the research, what they found is that when the mind has to work, learning sticks better. So they call this desirable difficulties. It doesn't mean putting up roadblocks to make things unnecessarily difficult, but when you have to work for it a little bit, you tend to understand it better, remember it better. So I don't believe that it should look like this. It looks probably something more like this. So I do think you can start analog with just really sitting down. Let's say you have the assignment or you're brainstorming what your presentation might be about. That can all be done analog first, but I think it's perfectly acceptable. That's why I call it the digital sandwich. The first part, open up the computer. I use Perplexity, as I said, but whatever you use, AI is great for search and for learning, getting a sort of a 35,000 foot view of things and details as well. But at some point, you're going to use those resources and then find some time. I recommend analog, off-grid, reading, thinking, doing annotation, reflecting, brainstorming, whatever it is. And then the next step, of course, is organization. You do that analog as well. And then back to the computer for designing your slides. So it probably looks something more like this. I call it, slow readings. But I'm a big proponent of reading actual books and taking some time to actually go through the literature. Now, so what does it look like? Maybe it looks something like this. Right? So I'm not quantifying it. I don't know how many hours. It's just each case is so different. You can't really have a prescription for this. But there's a lot of preparation work that we put in before the presentation. So maybe it looks something like this. It's hard to say exactly, but it just depends on how important. If it's a conference presentation that really, really matters, then you're going to spend a lot more time. If it's an assignment that you just got 24 hours before it's due, obviously that's going to take less you're just not going to be able to put the research in, obviously, in that time frame. But it doesn't mean that you can't go back, even though you're in the analog stage. Yes, of course, we're using AI. We can go back to ask questions, to search for terms, or whatever it is. So it doesn't mean that it's a really, that you just don't use AI at all. There are just different methods of doing this. But generally speaking, I really like this idea of using AI at the beginning to get a handle on things, to ask a lot of questions and get feedback, but also get the sources to move on. So, in the old days, search would be in the library. So search in the early time of the presentation preparation might look something more like this, where we're using AI apps. But still, there needs to be time for reading, for thinking, for processing the information, thinking about it, organizing, and then designing visuals, whatever kind of visuals we decide to use. So yes, presentation is for sharing and it's for learning. So the great thing about student presentations is that it really incorporates a lot of research-backed, principles such as elaborative processing, dual coding, self-assessment, active recall, and interleaving, spaced repetition, because you're researching and then creating the presentation over days or weeks even, maybe even longer. So that really helps learning when you can space out the time that you have to prepare for it. I also find that the best presentations I've seen, I don't know about thousands, but I've certainly seen hundreds and hundreds of student presentations. And the best ones in the last couple of years since LLMs have come out is when the students really do, in their preparation stage, have a good mix of analog and digital. And that could include, of course, using large language models as part of their research. But they also spend a lot of time off grid or away from AI, really reading, or it could be watching videos as well, and then really thinking about the subject. So if it really matters, what I'm saying here is that, we are talking about learning. So yes, we don't want to waste time, of course, unnecessarily, but we want to take our time, just like the difference between, frozen food or taking the time to get the good ingredients and actually cook the meal. It's a very, very different thing. Frozen food is not necessarily bad, but it's not something we want to live on. So the other thing is we're talking about presenting for an audience. So it matters to the audience. Yes, we might be able to instantly make a presentation 10 times faster, but is it 10 times better? Is it any better for the audience? And that's another thing. So especially if we're in the business of making keynote presentations, we of course want to spend enough time to do a good job. So, for the sake of our audience and for the benefit of our own learning, I believe we should resist the notion of presentations in seconds or essays in seconds, and instead take the time, and AI can help with this for sure, but we should take the time and slow down to really study and analyze and reflect and do the best job that we can in the early stages of preparation. Sometimes speed and easy for us is important, but when it comes to learning and personal growth, I believe that speed is not the most important metric.